Hey, everybody. Welcome to your horoscopes for this week. This is the week ending June 25th. We got a big week actually going on, especially because the summer solstice is this week. That's really exciting for some people, that for others that live in hot places like me, I'm not quite as excited about it as maybe I once was when I was younger, and didn't live in a place that was, 100 and some odd degrees. But that's okay. It still is exciting to a certain extent. It's really exciting, when you plan some really fun summer stuff for sure, which we have done. Hopefully you guys have too. If you haven't, get on it. Okay. That's what summer's all about. It's all about fun in the sun, right? Although supposedly it gives us cancer, but whatever. Put your sunscreen on or stay in the shade. I don't know what to tell you. Not only is it the solstice, but of course, this is also the day that the sign changes as well. The signs do change on the solstices and the equinoxes. So we are leaving Gemini season. C'est la vie, Gemini season, moving into Cancer season, which means we're going to have a walloping good crabby time. So that's always fun too. But let's get to our horoscopes and see what's going on. And of course, we always start with Aries, the baby Aries. We get the moon coming into Aries on Tuesday and Wednesday, moving into conjunction with Jupiter, whose focus is very much on relationships this week, and Mars, whose focus is still on making that money, right? And having this split focus can be a little bit of a challenge, especially on Tuesday when the moon is in conjunction with Jupiter. Jupiter's all about expansion. So this can mean working on relationships that have difficulties and working through some of those difficulties. This can also mean that one of those relationships that has difficulties, that's going to heighten on Tuesday when the moon moves into conjunction with Jupiter. But it can also mean expansion of your relationships in terms of creating more relationships. And because Aries is still focused on money, with Mars influence being on money, this can also indicate throughout the week that we're talking about expansion of relationships that have to do with finances. So that it basically means you are expanding your clientele, you're expanding people to work with, creating relationships around business or making money. But on Tuesday, when the moon moves into conjunction with Jupiter, I feel that this has a lot more to do with relationships and with people that may actually be coming in and being needy. So your focus is on finances, your focus is on, it has been on expanding those finances. And then you have that person that comes in and is just like, I need you now, right? And they just won't let go, and it makes you stop what you're doing to have to pay attention to this person, and this can be so frustrating. um because in Aries, especially in Aries driven by Mars right now, is uber focused. Cannot, do not, do absolutely do not want to stop what I'm doing because I'm on a roll and I want to keep doing it, and that's great. But sometimes you just have that person that comes in and is like, no, I really need you now. And you have to stop what you're doing to pay attention to that person. I'm going to tell you right now, one of the things that I'm picking up is that it's going to be a hell of a lot easier for you if you just stop what you're doing and focus on that person. It's going to take a lot less time. First of all, okay, the more you avoid it, the more you fight with them, the more you just sort of you just keep on, this issue will last you a lot longer time. It will take up more time than if you just stop and say, okay, what do you need and what can I assist you with? What can I help you with? Sometimes all it takes is just somebody to listen. um and a good example of that, actually, my brother is an Aries. Hey Aries brother. And he's going through a lot right now. I mean, this is so the epitome of him currently right now. He's, getting a new place. He's adding hours into his so that he can get the new place. I mean, this is a lot of self-improvement for himself. And then his sister, that's me, comes in. And and we're dealing with some issues in the family, and I'm the one that's here dealing with them. So he has to stop what he's doing every now and then and listen to his sister, that's me, go a little bit crazy. And then once I'm done going crazy, he goes back to what he needs to do, right? Now, if he were to continue to try and avoid me, I'm just going to keep bothering him because, of course, I don't know necessarily that he's going through that. So it's not that I'm more important than whatever it is that he's going on. The fact is, if he doesn't pick up the phone and tell me, I don't know. So now that I'm aware that he's in the middle of doing this, I can back myself off as, as much as I can, providing that I continue to let him know what's going on within the family. So in situations like that, we're not talking somebody who is completely trying to sabotage what it is that you're doing. This is just somebody who, yes, you're focused on what you need to do, but this person just can't wait for whatever reason. And if you give them the 5, 10, 20 minutes, whatever it is that they need, you can, help them out and then go back to being focused on what it is that you need to do. And that's probably going to be the easiest thing for you. Chances are, if that's going to happen, more than likely it will happen on Tuesday when the moon is in conjunction with Jupiter at that time. As you move into Wednesday and the moon moves into conjunction with Mars, this creates a completely different energy, as Mars is still very much focusing its energy on making money. And the moon moving into that transaction, so to speak, gives you a very deep and emotional reason why you need to be focused on this money. So that can be interpreted in a lot of different ways. But my feeling really has to do with, pardon me, this coming up or certain situations that come up that help you to emotionally connect why it's important for you to do what it is that you're doing right now. So if you have any doubts in your mind that are coming up and making you go, I'm not, maybe this isn't the right focus for me. Maybe I should be sacrificing, throwing myself on the sacrificial block and sacrificing myself for something else. The moon is going to come in and say, absolutely not. This is what you need to do for you. And if you help your emotional health, it will allow you to be able to help with all these other situations in your life. So that is what I have for you guys. I hope that helps, and good luck with that. Moving on to Taurus, Venus continues to be in Taurus until this week, and then she moves on out of Taurus. And having her influence in your long-term goals being financial goals, travel goals, education goals, even in some cases, career goals and personal goals, any kind of long-term goals. That creative influence, I feel in many ways for Tauruses has been very helpful. And I almost get this sort of feeling of what do I do when she's gone kind of a thing. Luckily, though, as she leaves, I'm moving into trine with Pluto, and Pluto is retrograde. Not that really counts against anything. But this trine with Pluto is actually bringing together people that you love into the mix here. And so this provides us with kind of the reason for some of your long-term goals. So for instance, those that have families, a lot of times, you're creating goals for yourself, but you of course incorporate your family and your family's needs into that. Or in some cases, or in many cases, I should say, it's not so much about your long-term goals as it is your family's long-term goals. But I also, as you know, with Venus moving into a square with Saturn, which is also retrograde right now, there is kind of that struggle there between my goals versus my family's goals versus what do I need to do for me versus what do I need to do for my family. And that's a very common problem, actually, or a very common struggle, I should say, for a lot of people, because it is a struggle. You have your personal goals, you have your career goals, you know what you need to do that's best for you, but at the same time you have to take your family into consideration. And so a lot of times, even to the best of us, this becomes sort of a struggle. It's like, what do I do? Do I sacrifice my needs or do I sacrifice my family's needs, kind of a thing? And the truth is, you really don't have to sacrifice either. You're not looking at it in the right way. And that's really what the message is in terms of these planets lining up the way that they are. You don't want to look at it in terms of who has to sacrifice what, or if a sacrifice even needs to be made in this, right? What is good for you in many cases is good for your family. Now, that being said, there are some instances, like, say, for example, if you are a mother of children and you work, which a lot of us females have had to do. And I'm not saying that, men working with children are not important. That's not what I'm saying. But if you are a mother and you have to work and your work requires a lot of travel, it's really hard. It really is hard to spend that much time away from your children. It really is hard to sacrifice you raising them to somebody else. And so if the decision has to do with being away from your children a lot, it is a very difficult decision to make. Is that necessarily good for your children? At the same time, finances come into that. And, if this job is going to provide you with more money to help you support your children in this day and age, we do seem to need a lot of it for whatever reason. Everything is so expensive. In some cases, it would be a good thing. In some cases, not. The thing here that is really important is your responsibilities. Being that Saturn has something to do with this, and Saturn is in retrograde, it is showing you clearly what are your responsibilities and what are not your responsibilities. And it's very important when making these decisions not to bring responsibilities that don't belong to you into the decision-making process. And really, this is what it's all about. Truth of the matter is that I know a lot of women, myself included, who have a tendency to not move forward because, oh my God, my kids need me. My kids need me. My kids are grown adult men, people. Okay. And because my children are grown adult men, people, it doesn't mean that they're never going to need me. It doesn't mean that that I'm not a mother anymore, but it also means that they're not children either. I don't have to put my life on hold for them. If they have a problem and I can't help them with it, they can find help in other places. I've raised them to be able to do that. So with that being said, when I use them now, it's an excuse. It's not a valid issue because I'm creating an excuse for myself to not move forward. And of course, that is something that you have to be aware of when you're making these decisions. How many of these roadblocks are actually excuses that you're using because the fear is saying, no, you don't want to move forward. I hope that makes sense. Uranus, of course, is still in Taurus as well, and will continue to be in Taurus for another few years, and has moved back into that square position with Saturn as well. Saturn being retrograde has actually moved back into that square position. Don't panic. It's not going to last forever. Okay. It is actually, something that's going to happen. We're going to have this for about a month or two, and then it's going to go away. So it's not like we're stuck like this as we were last year, where it just felt like we were stuck there all the time. When you're talking about Uranus in a square with Saturn, you've got two planets that are the exact opposite of each other. Uranus is very much goes against the grain. It's very unique. It's a kind of rebellious in a way, does not like tradition, breaks away from tradition. Saturn is the antithesis of that. It's all about tradition. It's all about continuing to do things the same way that you always have. And so I really feel that this week for you guys, these planets being an influence in Taurus and lining up with Saturn in this way is really telling you that your goals, and when you're in terms of focusing on your long-term goals, you really need to focus on what is best for you and your family. You really need to focus on what you want. First of all, you know, a lot of people sacrifice what they want to do in life because they have kids, or because they have parents that are ill, or because they have, you know, all of these different things that go on in life. And the truth is that you don't have to sacrifice anything. Okay. If you don't want to, you make a choice to do the right thing. And that's really what it's about. Don't allow all the particulars to get in the way of you making a decision. It is very black and white. And as long as you keep it black and white and avoid that gray area, the decisions become a lot easier to make. And that's a really what this is all about for you guys this week. So you guys, that's what I have for you. I hope that helps. And we're going to move on to Gemini. Venus moves into Gemini on Thursday. And as she moves into Gemini, continues the trine with Pluto as she moves into Gemini. Also forms a sextile between Neptune and Jupiter as she moves in also. There's a lot of really great influences, and focus is very much split on your long-term goals as well as your career this week. So, and most of the planetary influence is on your long-term goals, because of course we still have Mercury in your sign as well. Thank goodness it's not retrograde anymore. We're not even in a shadow period anymore. That was kind of brutal, to be honest with you. That last retrograde was a little bit brutal, especially towards the end there. But we're not going to go back there, because that is in the past. We're dealing with right now and what you need to do right now. Now, decision making for Geminis is hard, okay? Because with the Gemini mind and how the Gemini mind works, there is about a million different outcomes that could happen. And with most air signs, we really want to know what the outcome is. We really want to control that situation as much as we possibly can, which is not an easy thing to do. And quite frankly, it's an impossible thing to do. We have no control. So when you're talking about making these long-term life goal decisions, a lot of fear comes into play there, because of the fact that, you know, what if you go wrong? Now, I was just talking to my Gemini uncle this morning, as a matter of fact, and one of the things that came up in our conversation, which by the way covers a lot of things, because I'm an Aquarius and he's a Gemini, so literally a 2-hour conversation encompasses pretty much everything in the world. Okay. And by the way, we fixed everybody's problems, right? But one of the things that he said was, it's important to make progress, not perfection. And when he said those words, it dawned on me that this is the answer to everybody's problem, right? We're so focused on perfection. We're so focused on it being perfect that we're not making progress. And because we're not making progress, we're not moving forward. So we continue to feel like we're stuck in this decision-making process, which really doesn't help our situation. With Venus is sextile with Jupiter and also with Neptune, very much focused on relationships. And then of course Venus is also in a trine with Pluto at this time, which is focused on those you love. We're talking about being in a situation where it's hard to make a decision, because you have what you want to do and what you feel you need to do, and then you have everybody else's opinions, needs, wants, blah blah blah, etc. And that just makes things way more complicated than they need to be. And you're a Gemini, so you're going to complicate the hell out of it anyways, because that's what Geminis do, right? It's time to take a great big giant step backwards and say, okay, let me get myself out of this mind garbage that I'm going through, and just look at it in black and white. What do I need to do to improve my lot? What do I need to do to move forward? And don't think about what you need to do to make it perfect. Think about what you need to do to make progress. Okay. And this is a big deal. I'm not saying that no Gemini ever makes progress, because that's not true. But Geminis get so distracted by what's going on in their mind that progress doesn't happen. And those distractions almost feed off of the need for perfection, which kills the progress. So you want progress, not perfection. That should be your motto for this week. So I'm going to leave you with that, other than the fact that this week Gemini season is over. And so your party is over, but that does not mean that celebrating how awesome you are is ever over. You need to keep celebrating that. The more you celebrate that, the stronger you feel. And the stronger you feel, the more likely you are to progress, which is really what's needed. So that's what I have for you guys. And we're moving on to Cancer. We've not had a whole lot going on in Cancer, of course, until this week. This week is the summer solstice, and at the same time of the summer solstice, of course, the sun moves from Gemini into Cancer. So Cancer is the sign of summer. It starts off summer, which is awesome. And I hope you guys have a crabby good time enjoying your time, because the next 4 weeks, it is all about you. Now, as the sun moves into your sign, moves into a trine with Saturn. Saturn is retrograde. So Saturn is all about responsibility. And when Saturn is retrograde, a lot of times it shows us responsibilities that we've taken on that really don't belong to us. But in many cases, it also shows us personal responsibilities to ourselves that maybe we weren't aware of, or we weren't paying attention to, or we weren't really looking at. And that is a glorious revelation, but it's also kind of a scary revelation too, when you think about it. And human nature, especially emotional human nature, has a way of trying to convince us that we have failed because we have not seen these responsibilities before. And because we failed, we have to punish ourselves. Now, this is not going to help your situation. It's never going to help your situation, actually. In fact, in many ways, it holds you back from any kind of progress at all. So when that comes up this week, you definitely want to try and identify that this is happening. It's probably an emotional pattern for most cancers, for most people, period. But cancers tend to take it very, 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 very personally. I have a Cancer son who just hated it when he failed in school, when he didn't get something. I mean, he really would beat himself up over it. This is not something that you want to do. Beating yourself up does not help you move forward. It holds you back in so many ways. And with your focus on your career this week, it's really important to move forward and not backward. The more you stay where you're at in your career, or you start to take a step backward, it doesn't work in your favor. It doesn't help you. It definitely holds you back. Now, the sun's square with Jupiter and Neptune is also one of those things that unfortunately is going to hold you back, because of course Neptune and Jupiter are very much focused on relationships. So it's really important, actually, to be aware of just how much influence other people around you have. If you have relationships with people who have a tendency to say something negative, and that creates a sort of a fear response in you and makes you kind of take a step back and go, okay, well, I'm not going to do that. That's not going to help you out either. Okay. Fear responses aren't usually helpful. They usually have a tendency to make you stop and take a step backwards. Right. And so if you're not seeing that fear response yourself, other people have a tendency to come in and kind of sort of create that for you. So for instance, you want to run for president, and you go to your friend and say, you know what, this whole place is just screwed up. I'm going to run for president and I'm going to fix it. And your friend goes, you can't run for president. What the hell is wrong with you? You are not smart enough, not good looking enough, whatever. That's going to affect your decision to become president. All of a sudden, you're going to go, you're right. In your mind, you're right. My friend is absolutely right. I'm not smart enough to become president. So therefore, I'm just not going to do it. honestly, that's not going to help you out very much at all. In fact, as usual, it is going to hold you back. So it's very important that when you do ask for advice or get unsolicited advice, because a lot of times people are really, really quick to jump on that unsolicited advice type of a thing. It's really important for you to put that in its right place. Okay. People are always going to have an opinion of what you're going to do. The most successful people in the world have had people come up to them and say, there is no possible way that you, of all people, are going to be able to do that. And you know what? They didn't listen to those people. And that is why they are where they are right now. Listening to those people is only going to keep you in the same place that you're in right now. And that's not necessarily where you want to be. Progress is progress. It's constantly moving forward. If you don't keep making steps to move forward, you are always going to stay in the same place. And of course, that's not what we're here for, right? So that's what I have for you guys. I hope that helps. Moving on to Leo. Leo has no planetary influence this week, not even the moon. The moon doesn't make it to Leo this week. So basically, you've got a clear week, in terms of planetary influence. Focus is on those who love you this week and your support system. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes we feel like we have a really good support system. Sometimes we feel like we don't have a support system at all. And when your focus is on that, it's really important for you to make sure your focus is in the right place. If you're taking this to an emotional place in terms of not having, we'll say not having a support system, and you're taking this into an emotional place. Now, first and foremost, everybody does this because it feels good to have support. When you have somebody there that is backing you and behind you, it just feels better. It feels crappy to feel like you're going through life by yourself and you're the only person that you have to rely on. But you also have to think about that statement, a person that you can rely on, and it's you. And it's also the only person that you have any control over whatsoever is you, because you don't have control over other people. So you can't force people to be supportive when they're not supportive, but you can force yourself to be supportive. That's something to think about now, isn't it? Because a lot of times we don't think about supporting ourselves. We think about needing that from other people. And that's an emotional response. And in many cases, it's an emotional trauma response because we have spent a lot of time in our lives not having that emotional support. And that makes things really difficult. So that's one thing that's coming up for you guys this week. The other thing that's coming up is that as we get towards the end of the week, Friday and Saturday, the part of fortune comes into your sign. And the part of fortune brings luck, which means these are kind of lucky days for you guys. I can hear some Leos going, I'm lucky all the time. And I can hear some Leos going, what's a lucky day? Right? Because it's very cut and dry. You have your over the top front man Leos, and then you have your Leos that are very much sort of hidden in the shadows, hoping that somebody will see them, kind of a thing. The way I see it, luck is what you make of it, and energy is what you make of it as well. So they're very much, almost in some cases, the same thing. But what I see in this is an opportunity. If we look at our day, and in that day, we got an extra cookie because we were the 100th person at the cookie place. And so we got a free cookie, and we got a compliment from a stranger, and we got, a couple of other really good things that took place that day. But one person said something negative to me. most people are going to focus all of their energy on that one negative thing. Now, granted, everybody has those days where it's just one shit show after another. Okay. In fact, the entire week of the end of the Mercury retrograde, the shadow period, felt like that in many ways. It's hard not to focus on the positive, or to not focus on the negative at that point when it just keeps coming and coming and coming. But that's not how everyday life is. And it's really important to stop seeing everyday life like that. Okay. Just because you've had trauma, you've had difficulty, does not mean that positive things don't happen. What that does mean is that you're not focused on the positive because you're so focused on the negative. So I have homework for you guys, a challenge for you guys. And that's to take those 2 days with the part of fortune in your sign. That's Friday and Saturday of this week. And instead of focusing on the negative things that happen, focus on the positive thing that happened and just see how you feel at the end of the day. I'm not saying there's going to be this great change in your life all of a sudden, but you will see a difference in how you feel about the situation, about the day, and et cetera, et cetera. So that's what I have for you guys. I hope that helps. And we're going to move on to Virgo. Still focus is on you, Virgo, but we are moving that focus from you, the external, to you, the internal. And that is never fun. We're going to just put it out there right now. That is never a fun thing. I have to say that who we are and our personality is largely based on astrology. I believe that. I've seen the proof in that. But I've also seen that who we are is largely based on how people treat us throughout our lives. And especially if you have a lot of childhood trauma, chances are the individual as an adult is going to be a more negative type person than a positive type person. I'm not saying that that is absolutely 100% the case, because that's not true, but I'd say 95% of the time it really is, at least in my experience. When you're focused on the past and you're dealing with the situation as it is right now, and the past kind of sort of comes in to rear its ugly head a little bit, there's two things that kind of come up. First of all, hindsight is always 2020. You always see things more clearly after they've happened than you do in the middle of the situation, because you're emotionally invested in the situation, whereas your emotional investment from the past difficulties and challenges, you've already released it in many ways. So sometimes the truth hurts, for lack of a better way of saying it. Seeing things the way they are, not the way you want them to be, but the way they are, is not an easy thing. It's not an easy thing to wrap your head around. It's not an easy thing to embrace. It's not an easy thing. And you know, that's okay. It doesn't have to be. Nobody said it was going to be an easy thing. Give yourself the time. Give yourself the time and the space to process this disappointment or this challenge or this truth that maybe you didn't want to see before, and you surely don't want to see it now. You know, when truth is ugly, we try to avoid it as much as possible anyways. But you Virgos are very intelligent. You've got a great bullshit meter. You may want to wear the rose-colored glasses, but that doesn't necessarily mean that is the best thing for you to do right now. So when you have that experience, or when you're faced with an experience like that, where it tends to be a bit more emotional than you would like to deal with, it's okay. Do yourself a favor. Don't run away from it. Don't try and avoid it. You can run as far as you want. That doesn't mean that you're going to get away from it. It does not work like that. Instead, challenge yourself to face it, to deal with it, to say, okay, this is a shit sandwich. Okay. Is there anything that you can put on that shit sandwich to make it taste better? Mustard, relish, mayonnaise? No. Okay. There is literally nothing that's going to go with that to make that taste better. So it is what it is. And life gives you so many shit sandwiches. It's not even funny. So instead of trying to make it better, accept it for what it is. Nobody said you had to take a bite. Think about it that way. Okay. You can toss it in the trash. I don't want to eat this sandwich. I want a different sandwich. That's your choice. And we always have the ability to make a choice. It's when your emotions get involved in the choice that it becomes difficult. So try and be as clear-headed and black and white as possible when you're dealing with those choices. So that's what I have for you guys. I hope that helps. Moving on to Libra, focus is very much on the past still this week. And when we're talking about dealing with the past, I want to say that this week is very much about letting things go in the past. This is a problem for everybody. Okay, first of all, I mean, every human being on the planet has a problem with this. Libras are no exception to that. Okay, however, one of the things that I have noticed about most Libras, and I know quite a few of them, to be honest with you, they have a really hard time letting the past go. And you can tell that they have a really hard time letting the past go because they keep reliving it over and over again. They keep talking about it. It's constantly coming out of their mouths, right? Now, when you're talking about the past, you're not letting it go. If you're continuously reiterating that story, you are not letting it go. And you have to look at it this way, okay? If you had a burning piece of molten rock in your hand, why would you continue to hold on to that? It is burning a hole in your hand right now. And the longer you hold on to it, the bigger that hole is going to be. It's going to go right through your hand and you're going to have a big old hole in your hand at that point. It makes no logical sense to hold on to a burning molten lava rock and allowing it to burn a hole through your hand, right? In terms of trauma, in terms of negative experiences, in terms of things that happen that don't make sense to us and we don't want to deal with them, okay, they are going to happen. They always do. Why hold on to it forever? Why keep harping on something that is already over, right? Or if it's not over, the more you harp on it, the worse, the more you put negative energy into that situation anyways, the more complicated it's going to be to find a solution to the problem. It is very simple, okay? Let it go, all right? That is such an easy thing to say and such a difficult thing to actually do. But the truth of the matter is that it is easier to let these things go than most people think or give themselves credit for. And the way that you do it is you say, okay, I accept that this situation happened. I'm not happy about it. Nobody said you had to be, okay? I accept that this situation is happening. I get that. I would like to see changes in the situation, and this is what I'm going to do to promote that change. And if you're not willing to promote the change, then you just have to let it go and let it be what it is, okay? It sounds very mean and rude and abrupt as it comes out. But the thing about life is that it is what it is. And a lot of people wish things were different and they harp on these things because they want, it's almost like they want to go back and change it. And the truth of the matter is you can't, you know, the past is the past. There's nothing that you can do to change what happened. All you can do is change your response to what happened. All you can do is change your view on what happened. You have every right to feel the way that you feel. If the situation made you angry, you have every right to feel angry, right? Holding on to that anger, now that molten rock is in your belly, and that molten rock is burning a hole right through your belly. It makes no logical sense to do that to yourself. So why would you do it to yourself? Think about that. That's what I have for you guys. And we're going to move on to Scorpio. Scorpio doesn't have any planetary influence this week either, focuses very much on the mind and how you think. And Scorpios do tend to think on an emotional level because they are an emotional sign, but very logical at the same time. In fact, this week it's all about just how much you use logic to try and change the way you feel about certain things that you're thinking about currently at this time. Now, we all have trauma responses on some level. I never thought it was a good idea to compare people's trauma. Oh, my trauma is worse than your trauma. Who gives a shit? Okay. It doesn't matter, right? You have your trauma and your trauma is your trauma, right? And you know how you react to your trauma. And you know why you react to your trauma. And the main reason why you react to your trauma is because of the way that you're processing it in here, right? And using logic to cover up how you feel about a situation. There's a lot of people that use that and it does not work. Okay. You can't make sense of a situation that makes you feel a certain way. This week, it's really about not doing that. It's saying, I don't need to make sense of my feelings. Okay. I don't need to justify why I feel the way that I feel. I really just need to embrace how I feel and allow myself to feel that so that I can process it and I can let it go and I can move on with my life. This is the best way of doing it so that you can move past it. It is also not the way that most human beings do it as a rule. Okay. And I'm not saying that in a bad way. This is just the way that we're wired, over the thousands of years that we've been here on this planet. This is how we are wired now. And a lot of that has to do with our forefathers and how they reacted to things. A lot of that has to do with the changes that are going on in the world. A lot of that just has to do with the fact that I think we're made this way, to be honest with you. So when you're talking about what goes on in here, okay, and I was actually having a conversation with somebody today about, talking about the things that are going on in there. When you put a voice to what's going on in your head, it never seems as bad as it does when it's in here. And that's really what it's about this week. If you find yourself in that situation where you're just overwhelmed by emotional thought process, it's a good idea to find somebody to talk to, even if for nothing else, if you just need to vent because things are just too much for you right now. That's okay. Vent. You're probably going to find as you're venting, well, this as it's coming out, it doesn't sound like it's as big as it seems to be in my head. But you also just may find that because you're not holding on to it, even if it is huge, because you're not holding on to it anymore, you're not keeping it to yourself, the situation starts to feel lighter. And that's really what it's all about. And this is why Scorpios, you cannot use logic to cover up how you feel. You are not giving the respect to your feelings that you need to give, because those feelings are very, very, very deep. And they're very deep for a reason. It feels like a curse at times, I know, but they are very deep for a reason. And it's for you individually to figure out what that reason is. So that's what I have for you guys this week. I hope that helps. Moving on to Sagittarius, focus is on the home this week, and specifically looking at your home for what it is. A lot of people look at a home as a haven, a place for them to escape to, a place for them to just kind of be themselves and sit in their own energy and the energy that they create in their space. But for Sagittarians, being at home all the time is actually kind of a really frustrating thing. Sagittarians are people. They want to be out and they want to be having fun. I think that all the signs have had a difficulty during the stay-at-home orders during COVID. I think Sagittarians really did have a really hard time. Sagittarians and Aries especially had a really hard time. You know, there was a lot of people that were like, yes, I just get to stay home all day. I was one of them until about a month went by and I was like, oh, this sucks so bad, right? Be careful what you wish for is always it. This week for you guys, though, I feel it has a lot to do with, you know, yes, you respect your home, you love being there, but it really is about not being there anymore. It's about getting out of there, and finding a new adventure, finding something that is going to be interesting and exciting and fun. Fun is the word for Sagittarius. Sagittarians crave fun. They need fun. They go out of their way and get themselves in trouble to have fun many times. But the opposite of that is very depressing when you think about it. Sagittarians that are denied that, and not just denied the fun, but denied different ways of having fun, it can be very depressing. And you don't normally think of a Sagittarius being depressed, but it happens, and it happens a lot. This week is really all about finding a way to break up that monotony, because you go through the same process every single day, and nobody can continue to do that every single day for the rest of their lives. Sagittarians, it's like they've spent their entire lives trying to avoid that. And when you find yourself in that space, it's almost like it sweeps you up. It encompasses you. It's like it swallows you whole, and it's really hard to find your way. And most of the time, you may find yourself making some bad choices as you're trying to sort of bust out of this place that is just so incredibly uncomfortable for you. There's no reason to go through all of that rigmarole. Find some time this week to do something a little bit differently. You know, for instance, you have a lot of stuff going on. Put something in your schedule that you haven't done before. Put something in your schedule that you rarely ever do. Put something in your schedule that is new and exciting and different, or just different. It doesn't even have to be new and exciting. Okay. I'm not talking about climbing Mount Everest here. That's an extreme. And even though Sagittarians are very much about extremes, you don't have to go to the extreme. Usually you'll go to the extreme because you just can't take it anymore. And that's what we're trying to avoid. The more you shake things up, the more that you do things that are a little bit different and a little bit out of the norm, the easier it is, because you're actually giving yourself what you need in order to be successful. Think about it that way. And that's what I have for you guys. Moving on to Capricorn, focus is all about those that you love this week. And Pluto, of course, is, well, still there. We don't even need to talk about it anymore. He's been there for like ever, right? In retrograde, as a matter of fact. Now, Pluto is your sense of power. And in many cases is all about transformation. And Capricorn is not a sign that likes to transform, if that makes sense. You know, they find themselves a spot that they believe is perfection, and change is not necessary. They're already perfect, right? I'm not mocking you, by the way. Most of the Capricorns that I know are pretty close to that. Then again, that's not necessarily true. I know a couple that are not very perfect, but they may think that they are. Nobody's perfect. Let's just put it on the table right now. There isn't a single individual walking and breathing that is perfect. Okay. So you might as well just take that and throw it right in the trash right now, because it has nothing to do with anything. We're not perfect. And when we find ourselves, especially Capricorns, in that place of imperfection, especially towards the people that we love, we really, Capricorns really have a tendency to beat themselves up over that. Number one, it's not going to work for you. Okay. Beating yourself up is not going to get you anywhere. It's not going to change the situation. It takes away your power for changing the situation. It gets very frustrating. Your frustration reacts. It makes the situation way worse than it needs to be. Why do all that, right? Pluto's grand sextile, though, with Mercury as well as Jupiter, is a very powerful influence. Now, Pluto is the only retrograde planet in this sort of makeup here. And a grand sextile is actually a very positive aspect, a very big positive aspect. Jupiter is all about expansion, focused on relationships right now. Mercury is all about communication and intellect, focused on your long-term goals right now. Really, I find that you get the most frustration in life when you're not following your path, when you're not walking your walk. You're talking the talk, but you're not walking the walk. When you're not doing what you should be doing, you wind up running against roadblocks all over the place. Here we go over here we go over here, there's another roadblock. It just causes more frustrations, right? Where when you sit back and say, I'm perfect and I don't need to change anything, right? What you're actually saying is, I really would like to make things more difficult for myself. What can I possibly do to do that, right? And we're living in a world right now, and most Capricorns that I know would look down and go, oh, I can't believe they're doing this. How do they not know that it doesn't work, right? The truth of the matter is, we're living in a world where most people create their own roadblocks every day, several times a day. And while it's frustrating to watch other people doing that, when you're watching other people doing it, you're not seeing that you're doing it to yourself. And that's really what's important this week, is to take the time to see that, no, you're not perfect. Nobody is. And that's not really what it's about. We're not here to be perfect. We're here to be functional. We're here to grow. And everything else that gets in the way is nothing but a distraction and an excuse. And that's really what this week is all about. So that's what I have for you guys. And now we're moving on to Aquarius. Focus is on your day-to-day schedule this week. That is, I'm an Aquarius, and that is a bone of contention for me, we'll just say. Saturn's influence is very heavy in there. And of course, Saturn is retrograde right now. So when Saturn is the planet of responsibility and tradition. And when Saturn is retrograde, it shows us a couple of things. One, it does give us an opportunity to kind of move away from that traditional space a little bit. So, you know, that whole theory of you know, things have to be done a certain way. That is so the antithesis of the way an Aquarius is. We tend to go against the grain and not want to do things the same way that everybody else does, but to find our own unique way of doing so. The other thing is that Saturn in retrograde shows us where we're taking on responsibilities that really don't belong to us, or showing us, giving us the opportunity to identify responsibilities that are being given to us, and that don't belong to us, and we're not realizing that they're actually being given to us, right? A lot of times when we go through this situation and it happens, I don't think that we're 100% aware in many cases that these are responsibilities that don't belong to us. And sometimes we are 100% aware and we take them on anyways, which, kind of doesn't make logical sense, but neither does being an Aquarius, really. We're just we special people, if that makes any sense at all. This week, it really is about taking responsibility for your schedule. It's about avoiding the excuse traps, avoiding putting yourself in the position for somebody to come in and disrupt your schedule and then using it as an excuse later on. The truth of the matter is that, in my belief, and this doesn't just come from being an Aquarius, okay? Aquarians could rule the world if they just got out of their own way. We're talking about individuals that are absolutely brilliant, very high intellect. But I also believe in the phrase, so smart, they're stupid. And the reason I say those words is because when you're saying somebody is so smart, they're stupid, it means there's so much intellect going on in here that the easiest, most simplest function like breathing is difficult, right? So I could literally write a million books on all kinds of subjects because I know so many things. But to remember to tie my shoes, oh my God, that's it right out of my brain. And then I wind up on my face because I didn't tie my shoes and I tripped myself. It's certain things like that. And I feel that at times that intellect breeds ego, and ego breeds you're going to fall on your face. So we definitely want to avoid that as much as possible. In terms of your day-to-day schedule, Aquarians are not scheduled people. We are fly by the seat of our pants and let's see where the world kind of takes us kind of people. So having a schedule is not natural for us. Does that say that it's not possible? It's not natural. And because it's not natural, those of us that do create a schedule will also create roadblocks into that schedule. Funny enough, but as I'm recording these horoscopes, I started late because I decided to put something in there this morning that I shouldn't, and I started late, and I have had nothing but problems recording these horoscopes ever since because people are coming in and out, and it's just, life is happening around me. Can be very frustrating, but I brought it on myself. I made the decision. I said, yes, that's exactly the direction I'm going to go in. And then now I'm dealing with it. So it really is all about being aware that you are doing this. The other thing that comes up a lot around this is that Aquarians are thinkers and idea people, not necessarily go-getters. Let's have this idea and do it, right? Actually, Aquarians are, I've got a great idea. And then they go over to Capricorn and say, here's my idea. And Capricorn comes up with a plan about how to get this done, hires the people to do it, right? In this instance, right? A lot of people will say, well, this is just how I am. And there's nothing I can do to change that. That is absolute ridiculousness. You absolutely have the ability to change that if you choose to change it. So if this is a consistent pattern, the first thing you need to do is look at, what am I doing to create this pattern? Okay. Don't look at other people. Okay. We're choosing to allow those other people. It's still our choice when it comes down to it. So you don't want to bump it on somebody else. Bring it back to you. What am I doing to allow this to happen so that you can put a stop to that, so that you have some sort of, dare I say the word, control over it, okay? This is for Aquarians and control freaks. That definitely sits very well with us when you think about it. So that's what I have for you guys and me. I hope that resonates. And we're going to move on to Pisces. We have a lot going on in Pisces right now, actually. And we kick off the week, actually, with the moon in Pisces, moving into conjunction with Neptune. Focus is on relationships. And when you have the moon and Neptune moving into a conjunction with each other, it's going to get a bit emotional. I'm not going to lie, especially at the very beginning of the week, Sunday and Monday. With focus on relationships and in terms of emotions in relationships, this can get really tricky, especially for emotional signs like Pisces. Because when you love somebody, nobody can hurt you as much as they can. And that really is the reality of it. And this is why so many people in the world avoid love like the plague, because they don't want to get hurt. What they don't understand is that avoiding love hurts just as bad as being hurt by love. And love has pain. Pain exists in love more than most people really realize that it does. To be honest, I've been in a relationship for very nearly 30 years. I think it's 27 years this year. And nobody has hurt me like he has. And I know that nobody has hurt him like I have. And I have gone through some serious trauma in my life with family, and been hurt several times by a lot of different people. Still, nobody has hurt me like he has. But I love him and he loves me. And the truth of the matter is that just because he hurt me doesn't necessarily mean that he's a bad person. We're human beings. We hurt each other. It's what we do, right? And when you love someone that much and you've been with somebody for a really long time, you don't see what they want everybody to see. You see the real person, and that it's really difficult sometimes to really see that person for who they really are, not what we think they should be, but who they really are. And this may create a bit of a trauma response for you guys this week. Now, if you take it to that very deep Pisces emotional place, you are going to get washed away with it. It really is that simple. I'm not saying don't be emotional about it either, because that's not going to work either. Take the time to feel the way that you feel. Take the time to process how you feel. The truth be told, if you don't do this, you're going to keep repeating this pattern over and over and over and over again. And if you are having an issue with somebody that you have a relationship with, regardless of what that relationship is, be it family, be it work relationship, be it your spouse, be it your children, nothing gets resolved unless you communicate that there is a problem. And with Neptune being in a sextile with Mercury, the communication planet, right? It sort of drives this theory in even more, okay? But you have to communicate it in the right way. If you're going to fight about it, if you're just going to throw your hands up in the air and say, screw me, nobody cares about me, if you're going to hold it in and just not say anything, nothing is ever going to get resolved. You have to step out of the situation, give yourself time to cool down, come back to it later, sit down and say, okay, we have to discuss this problem, not fight about the problem, not avoid the problem. We have to sit down and discuss this problem. We have to come up with a solution that works for both of us with this problem. If you can't do that, it's not a relationship. It's something else. Okay, we'll put it that way. It's something that is not fun and not something that you want to keep doing. And it really is as simple as that. You want to look at this relationship in terms of, yes, all relationships are going to have problems. Okay, they do. When I say I've been with somebody for almost 30 years and nobody has hurt me as much as he has, nobody has made me feel as wonderful as he has either. And it's a balance, right? The good outweighs the bad, but if the bad outweighs the good, you need to look at this in terms of what's the best thing for me to do? What's best for me right now? Because this is what I really need to focus on. Not because this person doesn't mean anything, but because maybe this person can't heal because you're there. Think about it that way. Maybe you're enabling the person and that's why there's still an issue. You have to figure out what you need to do for you, not necessarily that person. They need to fix their own shit. So that's what I have for you guys. I hope that helps. And that's it for this week. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. Thank you for watching. Check out the heavymetalpsychic.com and the new membership options that have just been launched with weekly personal readings for you right here on my YouTube channel and workshops coming out. One workshop a month starting next week or the week after. I'm currently getting that together. So we are right in the middle of that process. Until then, I will see you guys next week. Oh, next week is a holiday for us Americans. And I'm going away for the weekend. How fun is that? Better get the horoscopes for next week done soon. So I will see you guys later. Have a great week, and I will see you next week.